Hello, beautiful. Welcome to Thursday Talks. Today is a special session. Instead of being live, this is a replay of a popular Thursday talk from the past. I hope you enjoy this one. I'm sorry I can't be live with you today, but I will be back with you very soon. If you would like to join me in the Facebook group, the Home Organizing Challenges group is what you can search on Facebook to find us. The link is also in the description. I'll see you live soon, and I hope you enjoy this popular topic. I love you. Hello, hello, hello. How are you today? This is Suzanna Kaye, and we are talking about all of the questions to ask yourself to help you declutter your home without all the struggle, because it's all about the questions that you ask to make it so much easier to figure out what to let go of and what to keep. We want to make sure that we're keeping the things that are truly important. So, this week in our Declutter Decision-Making Questions series, this is part 3. So if you've not yet caught part 1 or 2, they're on the YouTube channel. Make sure to stop by there and check it out. But part 3 is time and logic. So these questions are going to be focusing on the time and logic aspect of the mental side of our organizing. And you know me, I love to talk about the mental side of organizing. So as you hop on, say hi. Let me know who you are, where you're from. If you're in the major snowstorm, let me know how you're doing. I hope you're safe. Hey, I see Beth is here. Welcome. Hey, Maggie from New York. Hopefully you guys aren't too snowed in right now. Linda from Michigan and RJ from Ohio and Stella from New Hampshire. Welcome. So glad to see you hopping on. Also, as you hop on, let me know, have you seen any other parts of the series yet? Or are you new to catching these Thursday talks? If so, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, beautiful. All right. Now, I mentioned that today we're talking about time and logic decision-making questions. So that's what we're focusing on, is the time and logic aspect of the mental side. So far, we've talked about, let's see, part 1, 2 weeks ago, was about value, the value of the item. Part 2 was about space and freedom. That was last week. Next week will be about charity and love. And the final week will be emotions and moving forward. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. Pick whichever of these questions resonate with you most. If there's one that you're resistant to, you probably need it. So if there's one that, you just really don't like the emotions it brings up, or you don't like the question, it's probably one that you actually need. So experiment with that one. But not every question is going to be a rock star in your life, but there will be several questions that can change the way that you think around your home. So those are the questions to focus on. And next week, I'm hoping to have my decision-making questions printable cards where you can cut out some of these questions. Well, I'll put all of the questions. You can cut out the questions, hang them up on the wall or on your desk while you're organizing or working to keep them top of mind. So next week, that will be our free handout. This week, it's just our Thursday Talk notes, the general worksheet. So if you wanted a worksheet where you can record your thoughts and your actions that you plan to take and just keep track of your Thursday Talks and all of the information that you learned, then that is available for you to download. It's also listed in the description. All right, really quickly, before we head on to question number 1, I see hello to all of the people who've hopped on. It's so great to see you all. Cindy asks, I missed the other 2. Are they recorded? They are. They are on the YouTube channel. So head over to my YouTube channel and you can find them there. And Jane says, good morning. Got my printed Spark Life Binder. Such a quality product. Yay! Oh, I'm so excited. I'm glad that you love it. I worked very hard to try to make it the highest quality I could. So I'm so thrilled. Yay. And hello to everybody who's hopping on right now. Oh, hey, Mary. It's been a while since I've seen you. Welcome, welcome. And oh, yay. Mary Davis says, hello from Chicago. Love your Thursday talks. Would not miss one. I love that. Yay. It's nice to see all of these faces each week, all of the same faces. RJ's in the middle of a level 2 snowstorm. She still has electric, but she's staying home. Well, I hope you stay safe. And I'm so glad that you've got electric. It's important when it's so cold, right? Welcome, welcome. Let's see who all else is here. And Susan says, from frigid Wisconsin, I'm loving the series. Best takeaway for me has been When will I get around to doing it? Look at my books and think, when will I read that? Oh, that's a hard one for me too. That's one of my trigger questions, especially with projects. So I hear you there. Jane says, I decluttered my hall closet and bought organizational items. What an eye opener. Also working on my medicine cabinet. Why do we keep stuff we don't use or need? This has really helped me so much. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I absolutely love it. Love, love, love it. It's great to see each of you here as I'm seeing all of the comments as you say hi. Oh, wow. Hey, Tracy. Tracy says, hi, Susanna. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. I used to work with Tracy way back in the day when I was in finance. So welcome. Hi, Trace. Awesome. And Peg says, hi from Chattanooga. Got my printed Spark Life binder. Yay. Well, you guys know, if you need anything, any help with it at all, you know where to find me. You can email me anytime at hello@susannakay.com, and I'm here to support you. All right, so let's get down to the focus of today, right? Time and logic declutter questions. So, like I mentioned, not all of these questions are going to resonate with you. Pick the ones that do. And today we only have 4 questions, but they are solid questions. So the first question is it still in good condition? So when you're looking at items around your home, especially if you're grouping items into a category and then seeing how many you have and which ones you should let go of, that's a great way to declutter, by the way. Find a group and then see how much you have of something, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But when you're assessing which items to let go of, or if you still need it, think about if it's still in good condition, because there are so many times we don't really see our things. We see them, but we're not really looking at them. So an example of this for my life is the other day I went to the grocery store and I have, my reusable bags that I love to bring. And one of my favorite souvenirs to pick up while I'm traveling is a reusable bag. Sorry, I just heard my phone and I don't know where it is. But that reusable bag, it was something that I picked up in my travels. It was one that I really love. I think it's super pretty. But I noticed for the first time, I finally actually noticed that the handle of it was completely falling apart. It was one of those like pleather handles, and it was just disintegrating all over the place. So when I put it on the little conveyor belt, I realized there were bits of the handle on the conveyor belt. And this had obviously been happening for quite a while, but I'd not paid attention to the condition it was in. So that was one of those moments where I realized, my goodness, I'd not actually been seeing the bag, and it was time for that one to go. And since it was memorabilia with that one, it was not one of the trips that I would be really upset about not having that bag from. I've got other things from that trip, but so that one I could just let go. Sometimes you might want to take a picture of it and let it go, or find a way to truly repurpose it in a good way, not to create another project, but repurpose it. But really look at your things as you go around your house today. Maybe look around at various objects and notice what condition are they really in, because after a while we stop seeing them, right? We stop seeing the true condition that they're in. So is it still in good condition is question number 1 in the time and logic section. All right, so back to some comments. Mary says that she got a cube timer. If you were on the time management webinar with me, then you know what she's talking about. I love my cube timer. She says that she uses it every day. Love, love, love that. And if you wanted to check out the time management webinar, that's in my store, susannakay.com, and click on store. But that's so awesome. I'm glad that you have that. Alyssa says, I'm a terrible procrastinator. I hear that. That's why breaking these things down into questions that you can use as you walk through your house every day, instead of creating an actual task of organizing, if you're walking around just focusing each day on maybe one question, like what condition it's in, that makes it easier because now it's not a project. So there's nothing really to procrastinate about. You're just going to be more observant during the day. So try that one out. Sometimes we have to trick ourselves into doing the things that we really want to do, because I can be a procrastinator too a lot of times. Hey, Julie, good to see you. And Pamela. Paula is snowed in North Texas, which is normally too bad, but she says normally she can't catch the Thursday talk sessions because she's working. But today she's snowed in, so I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. Karen Lane. Oh, hi, Karen. Good to see your beautiful face. She says, love this Wonderful. So glad to see you here. All right. So if you are loving this, then make sure click the heart, the like, the comment, whatever's available on your screen. Tell me in the comments if you're enjoying it. That always helps me reach more people and know what's resonating with you. So for our time and logic questions, so far we covered question number 1. Is it still in good condition? And this means really looking at our things because a lot of times we're not really even looking at them anymore. Question number 2, how easy is it to borrow or replace it instead? So there are so many times where we feel like we need to be the one to own something, even though we rarely use it. So an example of this might be maybe a crock pot or a chainsaw. Those are the types of things where we rarely need to use them, so we might not even need to own it. What you can do is either if you have family nearby, friends, if you know your neighbors, if you're close with your neighborhood, some neighborhoods even have like sharing groups, but you can connect with other people and maybe you own the crock pot and your neighbor owns the chainsaw. And that way, whenever you need to borrow a large crock pot, you can borrow that from them. And whenever they need to borrow a chainsaw, they can borrow it from you. And that way you're saving so much space, right? This works really well with the larger things or the very rare use items. And it's a great way to get to see and talk to your neighbors more or see your friends because, hey, to borrow that large crock pot, now you might need to go and meet for coffee. Oh, darn, right? So you can even make it into a fun event of borrowing things and loaning things back and forth. Or it can be as simple as, hey, they'll leave it in the carport. You can swing by and pick it up, and that's where you'll drop it off when you're done with it. So as simple or complex as you want, but we don't always need to own the item just because we might want to use it once in a while. This works really well for books. Check out your local library. Does it have the book already that you've been putting off reading? Well, if so, maybe you don't need to keep that book. You can always borrow it from the library whenever you're ready to actually read it, if that day comes. Or donate that book to the library. Then you know that they have it, right? And you could just borrow it back from the library when you're ready to read it. And until then, other people can enjoy it too. So books is a great way. Magazines, instead of keeping your magazine, if you've either not gotten around to reading it or you've already read it, once you're done with it or you realize that you're just not finding the time for it, the next issue's arrived, pay it forward because you can always borrow things from other people. So how easy is it to borrow or replace? And by replace, those types of things might be for some decorations like holidays, those plastic pumpkins that you can get from like the dollar store. Well, if you have several plastic pumpkins, that's a lot of storage that you're taking up when you could easily replace it the next year. Now, I am not one for filling up landfills with a number of things that we're only going to use temporarily. So if you are going to plan to just replace it and not keep it, a lot of times I do try to say, find a place to donate it to. Things like the plastic pumpkins, churches or, schools or places like that could usually use those types of things for fun events. So if you do have something that takes up a lot of space, is pretty easy to find again, or very inexpensive, those are some things you might just think about replacing them if and when you decide to use them again in the future, because maybe you don't even want to use the pumpkins every year. Maybe it's a once in a while thing. So how easy is it to borrow or replace instead? And you can check out your neighborhood. Some neighborhoods actually have little local sharing groups. I know that mine does. And it's a local group in the neighborhood. We list what types of things that we have that we're willing to loan out. If somebody doesn't see it on the list, they post a little board. They say, hey, I'm looking for and if somebody has it, then they say, I've got one. I'll leave it in the carport. And that's a great way to do it. All right, so let's check out some of the comments really quickly. Okay, so Cindy says, it's hard for me to get rid of things. I'd like to sell them if possible since I'm not bringing in enough money right now. And absolutely, some things, just because you're letting go of it does not mean that you have to donate it. You can sell items. When you're selling items, though, remember the amount of time it takes to sell the item. Some items won't be worth the time for what you can bring in. You might be better off, doing a craft and selling it at your local church's craft event or something like that. So really think about the amount of time it's going to take versus the income you'll get from it. You know, if you're going to sell your leftover wrapping paper from the holidays for $1, well, it's probably not worth the time to post it and arrange to leave it out for somebody. But something like, you know, if you have the large crock pot that you're not using anymore, that could be absolutely worth selling, and you can find some easy ways to sell it. So when you're looking at getting rid of things, go back to part number 1 when we talked about value, what the value of things are, and then think about what can you sell, because it's a perfect way to let things go if you can get some extra money from them as well. So absolutely understandable. You've got this. Linda says, I have too many food storage containers. How to choose what to keep? Absolutely. And I'm thinking, do we have that in? I think that actually later in this one, we'll talk about that. Actually, I'll incorporate that into one of our questions for today, because I don't see a really good question for that in the others. So good question. Yes, and he says, however, I know there's too much stuff in the house. And as far as selling things, sometimes you might want to sell things as a group. So if you have a whole lot of craft supplies you're not using that you would want to sell, instead of selling everything individually, maybe everything that has to do with sewing, you group into a box and say, hey, I'm selling all of this sewing stuff. You know, it's the entire box for this amount of money. And that's going to save you some time and get rid of a larger amount of things. So hopefully that helps. Oh, Karen says Susie's the best organizer. She helped me organize my whole house. We had fun. We had so much fun. And with Karen, it was fun. We even found like some great things that she had lost and not even remembered in her closet and stuff. It was great. Lizette, pressure canner. My friend owns one, so I can borrow it when I need one. Exactly. That is the perfect example right there. I love that. Julie says, I'm sharing items with my neighbor, but most of it's in my garage. She is saving the space. Well, yeah, you might need to make that more equitable, right? Maybe you say, hey, can you store this? You know, I'll store one, you store one, and make it a 50-50 split or something. But yeah, definitely try to make that a little bit more equitable there. And let's see. So Ginger says, saving and disposing of deceased family members' medical, financial documents, etc. So that's not something that we'll cover today in this Declutter Questions, or really in the Declutter Questions series. If you do want to learn more about what papers to keep and that type of information, stop by my website, but also check out in, I think it's March. In March, is it? Yes, at the end of March. Then the Paper Path course is opening up, and that's a very good resource for learning all about what papers to keep, how to keep them, how to get them all organized. It takes you step by step how to organize all of the papers in your life. So you might want to check that out, Ginger. And if you hop over to my website, you can sign up to get notified when it opens and learn a little bit more about what that is. Hopefully that helps. SuzannaKaye.com. Finally added it to my wall. Yep, not a problem. So Cindy says that she sells online. Wendy says she can't find the worksheet for the printable cards. The previous one for notes keeps appearing. Yeah, today's download is actually the notes. Next week will be the printable cards. So we were hoping to have them done in time, and we just couldn't get them finished in time and looking good enough. So next week will be the cards. I'm so sorry for the confusion. And yeah, Maggie, thank you so much, Maggie. She says the printable cards are not ready yet. All right, so to review so far, time and logic declutter questions. First off, is it still in good condition? And this means really looking at your things again, because we stop seeing what they really look like and don't even realize how ratty they're starting to get. 2, how easy is it to borrow or replace instead? You don't necessarily have to own it in order to still have access to it. And remember, share this if you're enjoying these and know somebody else who could use these tips. It always helps me when you share these videos. So from the YouTube channel, you can share them easily. Now, question number 3, and this goes for that Tupperware and so many other things. How many do I have? Now, I don't know about you, but I know that this one for me, this is a big question, because there are some times, like my reusable shopping bags, where I can get way too many and I don't even realize how many I have until I put them all in one place. So when you're thinking, how many do I have? Sometimes you might need to go on a scavenger hunt through your house and pull out all that you can find throughout the house to really see how many you have. So an example of this would be scissors. I don't know about you, but I know I have a lot of pairs of scissors, and every once in a while I have to rein them in and make sure that I don't have too many. So you can go through your house, find all the scissors in the house, put them all in a pile, and see how many do you have. And is that a realistic number for what you will actually use? Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. So some things, like if you have 2 rice cookers, you probably don't need 2 rice cookers. That's probably an easy decision. You keep whichever one you like better. You can donate or sell the other one. But some things like scissors, we don't need just 1 pair. We probably need more than 1. So one of the things that I like to do with something like a pair of scissors is once I've grouped them all into one area, I know which places I want to always have a pair of scissors. So I can pick my favorite scissors for the type of tasks that I use in that area. And I take from that pile, I will pull out my favorite pair of scissors for the task and put it in that place. So I'll gather them all in together. I will look through and I will find my favorite craft scissors, and I will put those in the craft area. My favorite scissors for bathroom tasks, because sometimes I'll have to clip a really wonky curl or clothing tags or something like that. So I'll put those scissors in the bathroom. I put the scissors in the kitchen. And so I refill all of the different areas with the scissors from the pile that I've just gathered together. And then I see how many are left over, and those are my excess. So most of the time, those can go because I already have scissors everywhere that I'm using them. And scissors are not something that are hard to find and replace if I did need to replace some, but I just pick the best of the best. So every area has my favorite pair of scissors for the job. So the rest can go. Now, the reason this is important is because if we do start to build up too many of these items, such as scissors, okay, well, now if you have 3 pairs of scissors in your kitchen, you only really need 1 pair of scissors in your kitchen, most likely. So now there's 2 pairs of scissors that are adding to the clutter and blocking your access to other things. So when we have too much of something, we tend to gather things because we're afraid that when we need them, we won't have them. But it does the opposite. We gather multiple different categories of things: scissors, pens, tape, rubber bands. But now we have too much of each of those. So when we need to find the tape, even though we bought extra, we can't find it because now it's being blocked by the rubber bands and the scissors and the pens. So we can't see what we have. So by having too much excess and buying extras because we're afraid we won't have them, we're actually creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we won't be able to find what we need when we need it because we've got too much of so many things. So this is a really, really, really good one and a hard one. How many do I have? Make sure to keep just what you actually need. Replace them in the areas that they need to go so you have what you actually will use and need in the various areas. But if it's excess, it's going to be getting in the way of what you really need, and you will end up buying more scissors because you couldn't find scissors because there was too much tape and rubber bands and pens in the way. And now this is how the excess builds up. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right. So Susan says, you wouldn't believe how many folders I have, right? Hanging, plain, colored, plastic. Yes. So that's a good one too. If you have too many, then let some go. And those are great to donate to like a nonprofit or something, or a teacher. So those are good ones to let go of. Maggie says, love this question. And Maggie also says, I can relate, Susan. Never really gave it much thought until now, right? We don't realize it until we actually pull them all into one place and think, oh, how many do I need? Peg says, I have multiple pairs of scissors and a granddaughter who borrows them for her craft projects. Yep. And what we have a daughter here too, and she always wants to use scissors. So there's one area where she knows to grab scissors from. And I make sure that there's always scissors there. But as far as the other areas, she's not supposed to grab the scissors from those other areas. So she knows this is my spot. And that way, when it's empty, I can tell. I can say, hey, Kayla, where are the scissors? Put them back where they go. And usually it's a spot where it's not something that I would need. So if I can't find the scissors in that spot, it's not going to cause me a problem. But that way it avoids the excess. Someone says, I have so many baking dishes in all shapes. How do you determine how to decide just how many to keep? For certain dishes, I use certain dishes, and some have their own tops, and some are just pretty on the table. But I know I don't need them all. So for Tupperware and entertainment dishes and things like that, there are two ways to decide how many to keep of something like that. So one way would be I like to limit it by either number or even more often by space. So for me, our storage containers, I actually have a little, we're nerds. So I have a TARDIS from Doctor Who, this TARDIS shaped like cabinet, and that's where all of our storage containers go. If it won't fit in there, if that size won't fit in there, then I can't keep it. One has to go for one to come in, because otherwise it's something that's very easy to keep adding to, and then it's hard to find what storage containers I need. I have too much excess. So you can limit the amount of items you have, like candles or overstock, by the container that you're putting them in. That is one way. You can say, how much am I willing to dedicate of space in my house to this type of item? Now, another way is by number. Maybe a lot of times I do this during the holidays. I figure out how many of those items do I use when we're using the most of them. And there's kind of, with storage containers or entertaining pieces, there are two categories. There are the how many do I use when it's a normal week, but we happen to be using a lot of them. Maybe we just I did a bunch of chili and stew and we're freezing more. How many am I using? And then that becomes my number. So I don't want to keep more than that. But I know sometimes for holidays, you might need extra. So I figure out also, okay, but for holidays, I actually use about 10 more. And I keep those with my holiday items because I don't need those all year. I only need them when we're doing a big meal. So I will keep the holiday extra storage items with the holiday stuff. And then the maximum number that we really use at one time or want to be able to use in my general storage. So how many do I really use at once? This works well with pots and pans. So, in general, when you're doing your biggest, most pot and pan heavy week, just like the baking dishes, how many do you really use of what types at once? And are there some that can do two purposes? So maybe you have a cake pan that can also cook your favorite, morning coffee cake. If it could do both, then great. You don't need the coffee cake pan and the cake pan, just pick one of them. So what can do various tasks is also helpful. And again, with holidays, if there are things that you really only pull out for the holidays, keep those separate. I actually have a storage bin of entertaining dishes and storage pieces that I keep in like a big storage bin with my holiday decorations, because that's the only time of the year that I really use those. So they don't necessarily need to go away. They just need to be out of your general space. And that usually helps. Also with storage things like Tupperware, if you always get the same brand, then usually they will sit inside of each other better and store easier. So if you're saving all of the random, empty butter holders and deli meat plastic containers and spaghetti jars, those are very hard to store because they take up so much space. They don't stack into each other well. And they all have their own specific lid, so it's hard to find the lid. So if you do try to stick to one brand, preferably a brand that will allow them to nest inside of each other, which means like sit inside of each other instead of on top, that saves so much space. And what I do with all those extra useful containers, a lot of times I save those with my entertaining items because that's what I send people home with. I'm like, don't bring the container back. Here's your extra turkey and gravy in an old, butter container. I don't need the container back, and it just makes it so much easier. So hopefully that helps. Now, if there's anything that's lost its lid or things like that, that should probably go also, and see if it's still in good condition. So how many do I have? Let's see. Yep, I see that there's several people with groups that are local. Lizette says, if you have an Instapot, you don't need a rice cooker, crock pot, or pressure cooker. She donated all of those items to fire victims who lost everything. That's a fantastic way to donate them too. Yeah, so like an Instant Pot, perfect way to replace 3 different things with one. And I love things that do dual purposes. This is a whole other topic that we should probably do a whole session just on this, but how do others deal with husbands with negative comments all along the way to decluttering? And I did one Thursday talk, not to check my YouTube playlist. I did a Thursday talk on getting your family on board, and that had some helpful tips in there. So you might want to check that one out. But that's a very in-depth question, and there's so many possible answers, but it's a good one. So I'll have to consider doing a Thursday talk on that one. Good question. Yep. And Patty's asking about artwork and school essays from her now 19-year-old child's childhood. Check out I believe it's going to be the Emotions and Moving Forward. Yep. Emotions and Moving Forward in 2 weeks, and also next week's Charity and Love. Those topics will help you out a lot. Pamela says, I have multiple pairs of scissors because others use them and don't put them back. And yep, you might want one spot that they can grab scissors from, and then the others can be your spots. So there's one pair of scissors that they can grab, and you don't rely on those scissors. So that way, if they didn't put it back, then they have to go find them. And then sometimes, like with Sharpies in my house, I hide the good Sharpies in places only I know. I've got my one Sharpie in each area. That way they can't walk away with it or ruin it. And then their Sharpies are in the main pen cup. And if it's empty, they better go find where they left it. So that's an option. Yep. Pamela says, having multiple pair of scissors actually was a problem solver. Yeah, you might want a couple pair in the space that people borrow from. Kathy says, please take pictures inside and outside of your TARDIS cabinet. I love the idea of storing all bins in one spot with a maximum limit. I'll have to do that, and I'll share it in the Facebook group, okay? So stop by the Facebook group later, and you can see my TARDIS picture. Yep, and Cindy says, when selling, she can donate what doesn't sell, which is awesome. BT got rid of 5 old scratched up fry pans last week, along with 6 old pot tops that the pots are long gone. That is awesome. That's a ton of space that you saved. Lynn also wants to see the TARDIS. Awesome. I'll post it in the group, in the main Home Organizing Challenges Facebook group. Yep. Keeping items with holiday stuff is a great idea. Someone said, thank you. Donna said it. I'll just keep what I always use upstairs and the rest in the basement. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. So Lizette has an answer to the question about that Linda asked, how do others deal with a husband with negative comments? She says, just replace him with the positive one. I guess that goes back to question number 1. What condition is it in? That's funny. If it was only that easy, right? Linda says, can you remind us how to see future session topics and dates? I don't have a list of the future topics. The dates are always Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So the dates are super, super easy. The topics will change as we go along. So you'll just have to kind of keep an eye on, YouTube. Usually the Saturday before is when I try to post the topic for the week, or the Facebook group is when I post it around Saturday. And then it says, what's a TARDIS cabinet? It's just where I store my Tupperware, my storage containers. So I'll have to take a picture and post it in the group. Linda says, love it, Lizette. Awesome. I love you guys today. You are full of beans and it makes me smile. Okay. So time and logic questions. Remember, this is part 3 of the series. So there are other questions in parts 1 and 2, and then there are 5 parts total. So we've got 2 more weeks of this. Time and logic questions. Is it still in good condition? So really look at your item and see how worn out it is, what kind of condition it's in, because we stopped seeing it. How easy is it to borrow or replace instead? Just because you use it once in a while does not mean you have to be the one that owns it. How many do I have? Because when we have too many, then that's when things start to get blocked and we can't find what we need. And then number 4, this is the last one of these. When is the last time I used it? Now, this is a question that I'm sure that you've heard a million times when people give organizing advice. So here's how to apply this one, though. There are so many times that we think that we use an item more than we actually do. So, for example, I live in Florida and I travel a decent amount, but sweaters. For me, sweaters never wear out because I have plenty of them, but I don't get to use them often enough. So sweaters are a really good example for me. Clothes in general, we forget how often we really wear clothes, but it's a good example for me of when is the last time that I used it? Because I remember wearing a sweater, but in my memory, it's last year, but in reality, it was 3 years ago. So sometimes we need to trick ourselves and give ourselves little breadcrumbs to tell how long it's been. With clothes, one of the things that I like to do is I will cut out like just a little piece of paper and I will write the date on it. And I will slide that, if it's folded clothes, I will slide that piece of paper in between the folds of the clothes. And this works really well for things like sweaters or jeans or like even putting them in your shoes. But that way, when I pull out a sweater, then that little note will fall out and I can throw it away because I can see, okay, well, I am wearing this as long as I actually put on the sweater. If I put it right back, then the note needs to go back in it. But I can, I don't need the note anymore because I've worn it. But usually about once a year, especially because I have this business and we do a closet challenge once a year, I will pull out all of my sweaters and then I can see which ones I never wore in an entire year because I've got the note with the date still inside. So when I unfold the sweater, out falls the note. I can see the last date that I touched that sweater, basically. Doesn't even mean that I wore it then. It's not been worn since at least that date. So that is a great way. And it does not mean that the sweater needs to go. Sometimes there were conditions that meant that I did not get a chance to. So during COVID, I could not wear sweaters much because I could not travel. So in Florida, most of my sweaters did not get worn. So in that case, when I reorganized my closet, I put those little notes right back in the sweaters because they had the dates. And that way I can make a better judgment. Was this because of COVID? Or is it because, even though I had cold, I just did not choose this one. I've got other ones I like more. So that's one way to tell when the last time is that you used items. Date them. So put a date on the item. You can put a little piece of paper inside. This works for crock pots and rice cookers and things like that. You can use a binder clip like these are binder clips, if you don't know what these are. So you can use a binder clip and clip a little note to it. And then you can see, this works really well for purses and shoes and hanging items, any clothes. You can either clip the date, or if you do regularly go through your closet, like I go through mine once a year, then you can see if it still has a clip on it. When you take out the clothes, then you would take the clip off the clothes before wearing it and not put it back. And then at the end of the season, if it still has a clip on it, then you never wore it because you never took the clip off. Same with the purse. If it has a clip on it, then you never used that purse since the last time you organized it. You can also use painter's tape because it peels off without leaving a residue, and write a date on it. And that's great for things like, your weed whacker or a craft item, things like that. So feel free, put a date on them or put a little marker with your clothes closet. Another thing that I do every time the season changes and I pull out the next season's clothes, I flip all the hangers backwards. So instead of hanging my hangers so that the hook goes that way, like you normally do, whenever I do my change out for the next season, I flip all of the clothes so the hanger is pointing this way. And then as I wear clothes, I take out the clothes, put the hanger back. After I've washed it, I put it back on the hanger and hang it the right way. So anything that is still hanging the wrong way at the end of the season, I never wore. So let's give ourselves a cue to know when the last time was that you actually used it, because our brains won't remember accurately. But a binder clip with a date on it never lies. So that's one way. Another way is a wait and see bin. So if you have something that you don't think that you will use, again, like rice cooker, or maybe you have an apple corer and you're not sure if you will really use it or you really need it. Sometimes you can have like an opaque, not see-through bin, maybe in your garage or something, where you can put all the items that you think that you won't really use, but you're not quite ready to get rid of because just in case, like the what ifs hit you. And you could put a date on this bin. So you put the things in the bin, and then if you do find that you need it, if you find, oh my goodness, I need an apple corer, I'll go get it back out of the wait and see bin, then okay, this was useful. I'm glad I did not let go of it. But if you write a date on the bin 1 year from then, or that the date that you put together the bin, whichever you prefer, you can see how long those items have been in there. Then you don't even need to open the bin. Don't look inside, because all of a sudden you'll think you need these things. Take the whole bin, drop them off to donate, and ask for your bin back. But sight unseen, just know all the things in that bin have not been used in, for me, it's usually a year, in that period of time. So that wait and see bin gives you a chance to have 6 months or a year to rescue an item in case you do find that you need it because you weren't sure enough to donate it. But it also gives it an exit plan. So when that date hits, I usually write the date 1 year from when I put all the things in it. When that date hits, then I'm like, all right, it needs to get donated. It's been a year or more since it's even been used. Okay, so that was question number 4. We will recap in just a minute. Let's see what else we have here. Just going through the comments. Here we go. Yep, Pamela says she keeps scissors and tape in the containers for ribbons with gift wrapping. Yes, I have a pair of scissors there too. She says Doctor Who rocks. I do love Doctor Who. And she says, yeah, sweaters. I'm sure everyone in my house has too many sweaters. It's hard, right? They accumulate. No problem. I'm glad you're here, Karen. You were a little bit late. It was so good to see you, Cindy. I'm glad that you stopped by. Sabrina says, regarding school papers for her 19-year-old, I've learned from experience that most of those memories are yours, not your child's. I went through all boxes with my college-age sons. They chose very few. Yeah, it is sad. And it truly is. Those are your memories more than theirs. And if you curate a collection of things that are more memorable and more important, then that is going to mean more to them. I have a memorabilia webinar that I will do later this year, and I talk about how to curate a collection of items for your kids that they are more likely to be interested in because you're not giving them all the things, because that's overwhelming, right? If somebody gave you, a bunch of tubs of papers to go through, then that's the last thing we probably want is more papers. So yeah, but next week and the week after, we'll go a little bit more into that. Also, the memorabilia's webinar, whenever that happens again this year, that's a good one. Sabrina says, I added a few they may like when they get older, reduced 18 years of amount to 50 pieces. They took those memories when they moved out. See, that's a great number. Much better. Linda says, oh my gosh, based on all these questions, I should donate almost everything in my closet. Shoes, handbags, clothes. It's true though. Like there's so many that we don't even wear. And just because you have not worn in a year does not mean it has to go, but it means you have to think about why you didn't wear it. There are so many times where we think that we love something, but there's really something else that we love more that we've been grabbing. So when you think about, okay, I love this, why have I not worn it? And during the closet challenge later this year, we'll go much more in depth into it. But if you haven't worn it, maybe there's not something that matches with it, or maybe it's a little uncomfortable, or maybe, you don't feel quite comfortable in it, or there's something else that's very similar for the same type of occasion and you grab that first. There's so many different reasons. So yeah, hopefully that'll help. Brenda says, I did the hanger trick this year. I also did it last year. I only had 4 items that I didn't wear. They got donated. Wow, only 4. That's awesome. You are a rock star. Jane says, I did the hanger thing and I was amazed what I don't wear. I know. I'm always amazed too. Also, every time I buy a new pair of shoes, I get rid of a pair. 1 in, 1 out. That is such a good policy. Francie says, Sabrina, thanks for those memories are yours, not your child's. That's such a hard area for me and my kids are adults. It's true. It's true. And we want those to be their memories because we love them. We love the memories. Yeah. Susan says, Linda, remember to include the impact of COVID on what you've worn or used. Also, the impact of COVID on your life and what you want your life to be more like moving forward, because after COVID, we probably won't wear quite as professional of clothing in a lot of the office environments, or maybe we won't be going back to a physical office. Things have changed. So think about what the new reality is. Maybe you do need more t-shirts and fewer business jackets. There's so much to think about, but it's kind of exciting about, fresh starts and new beginnings and new ways of being. Yeah, Linda says, living in a small apartment, my wait and see bin is my car trunk. That's perfect that way. If you've not pulled it back out after a little bit, you can just drop it off as you're driving. Ida says hangers backwards and date items will be very helpful. Good. Yeah, it helps me a lot. I always think that I wear clothes more than I do. BT says, I have a garage shelf of my son's school projects. I asked him about them this past weekend. He did not want any of them. I was really saving them for me. It's so true. And, sometimes take a picture. You can let go of the project, take a picture so that you can still scroll through those memories. Libby says, I have a small memory box for my daughter. It has to fit in that small box. 2 outfits, a small handful of papers type of thing. That's a good one. I like that. Again, limiting the amount that we keep by the space that we allow it to live in is a good one. Yeah, someone says COVID also prohibited us from having somewhere to go and something fabulous to wear. It's true. Yeah, I've not let go of any of my fancier dresses yet because I don't know what life will be after COVID. So that's why I've not worn those. Pamela says, small kitchen appliances, do you store them in the pantry, under the cabinets? It's different for everybody. It depends on the setup of your house. For me, with a lot of my small kitchen appliances, I keep the ones I use all the time in the kitchen, but the ones that I do keep, like my husband will not let go of his big waffle maker. Once a year, he uses the waffle maker. It's just something that I don't think he'll ever let go of. So we keep that in the laundry room just because we rarely use it. So it all depends on how often you use it and where you have space in your home. That's what I go for. Yeah. Jane says, my adult children don't want anything I have, even their items. It's true. A lot of the younger generations just are not as into the things. And even though it's sad for us, it's kind of nice knowing that they're not filling their lives with too much stuff. So they won't have as big of a problem with it, at least. So there's the silver lining, but we do want them to want the things. Sometimes taking the pictures of the things and just digitally sharing the pictures with them is maybe a good compromise. All right. So just remember, if you're enjoying this and know anybody else who might enjoy it, or even if you want to share it on your Facebook page, then share this video, click the share button, and make sure to share it with other people. And make sure that you're subscribed so you can find out, you get notifications whenever I go live, which is always handy to have. So just to recap, today we're talking about the time and logic declutter decision-making questions. This is part 3. Parts 1 and 2 are over on the YouTube channel in the playlist, and then we have 5 parts total. So the next 2 weeks. Question number 1, is it still in good condition? So really look at your things and see what condition it's really in, because there's so many times we don't even notice how ratty it's gotten, or that's falling apart or gotten really dirty. And then you can decide, do I need to clean it up, or is it just time for it to go? Number 2, how easy is it to borrow or replace instead? Just because you use it occasionally does not mean you need to be the one that owns it. So maybe you and somebody else each own some of the items, and you can loan them back and forth between the two of you. So you don't both need to own the same items. Or maybe you can just replace it. If you use something once a year, it's easy to find, inexpensive. Maybe you can donate it and then just replace it again next year and have that much space available throughout the year, which most of the time I think I would pay $5 to have a good chunk of shelf space for an entire year. So you can look at it that way. And then how many do I have? So when we have too many, then it can block finding the things that we need and make the problem even worse. So try to make sure to have just what you actually do need, because you can always replace them if you do find that you need more, but it's usually unlikely. You're usually going to make sure that things get back in their place if everything has its place. And then when is the last time I used it? So feel free, add dates and little tags, stickers, binder clips, flip your hangers, do some things that you can tell how long it's been since you used it, or even use a wait and see bin. So hopefully that helps you out. Now, if you do want to get text messages as reminders for any events coming up, Thursday Talks. So I usually send one out about 10 minutes before the public Thursday talk, anything like that, then you can sign up for text messages from me. Just text the phrase events with the number 1. So events, no space, and the digit 1. And that's all, to 407-214-4420. And that will sign you up to get reminders whenever I'm going live. And tell me in the comments right now. I'll put that number back up at the end. But tell me in the comments, which of these questions today resonated with you the most? Which one do you think that you will put into action the soonest or first? I would love to hear that. And then finally, let's see. Karen says she takes a picture of her grandson holding his artwork when he brings it home. It's easier to part with the big projects because we have a picture of him holding it. I love that. And yeah, Libby says the younger generation doesn't have the space either. No, they're usually living in small spaces too, especially if they're still young. Ida says they're not interested until they have children of their own. That's why curating a small collection of things that were truly important is really good. But even when they have kids of their own, a lot of the time, a lot of what we saved either might not be their style or it's disintegrated and it's not quite in the best condition to give their kids. So, the really memorable toys that they had and they loved the most, those types of things and that are in good condition, those are great to save for them, but not all the things. And if you are going to save things like clothing for them, their own clothes for their kids, make sure to have them preserved, because there's too many times where I see people who've saved things like clothing, and then by the time their children have children, the clothing is not really wearable anymore because it's just too damaged from time and disintegration. So make sure to take extra care of it. Yep, Peg says, special occasion china, gone. Couldn't survive the dishwasher, so it's out of my kitchen. That is great. What a space saver, because who wants to hand wash the dishes, right? So that's a great one for you. Pamela, attempting to clear kitchen counter space. It feels so good when the counters are nice and clear. Linda missed number 1 and 2. You can find them on the YouTube channel. So you're already watching. I can see that you're on YouTube watching. So go to find my other videos, and there's a whole playlist of Thursday Talks, and that's where you'll find them. And let's see. Yep, Maggie was saying, yes, check it out on YouTube. That's where you view it. Patty says, what I have too much of, I guess, is coffee mugs. Too many. Yeah. How many do you really use? Which ones are your absolute favorites? Maggie loves the how many do I have? Lizette says, where's the calendar located? I saw it, but can't find it now. If you go to my website, SuzannaKaye.com, it's right there on the video, SuzannaKaye.com, there's a link for event calendar, and you can find it there. Linda says, how many do I have? That's her favorite trigger question from today. Libby loves all the questions. She says she's looking at a pile of boxes. That's great. Lynn loves, when did I use it last? Great question. Paula, is it still in good condition, especially with clothes? Yeah, we don't even realize when there's a stain or a rip or it's getting a little ratty. Yep. When was the last time I used it for Jane? Ginger likes the hanger trick. Priscilla also loves, when was the last time I used it? And Karen says, I have 2 pieces of art that I did when I was young. I'm going to be 63 on the 18th. Happy early birthday. One, I won an art certificate, and one I made for my dad, who is 90 years old, and he just gave it to me. Oh, see, those are wonderful things. Those are the things that we want to be able to preserve and keep because they're special. So we want the excess to be out of the way so that we have room for these things that are just wonderful memories for us. RJ loves to figure out how much space you have for a particular item. If it doesn't fit, it goes. I do that with crafts all the time. I can keep way too many craft items. Joanne loves dating my clothes and other stuff. And oh, hey, Becky. Aw, Becky is here. Hello. It's great to see your beautiful face. It's been such a long time. Well, I have loved having all of you join me today. It's been wonderful, wonderful talking with you. Remember that this is only part 3 of the 5-part series of the Declutter questions. So I hope that you can join me for the next 2. Remember, I'm live every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Right here, you can check out the past episodes of the Declutter questions and our other Thursday Talks. There's so many different topics we've done over on the YouTube channel. So there's playlists for the Thursday Talks where you can easily find them. So keep being amazing. Keep sharing in the comments, whether you're watching the replay or live. Let me know which of these questions you love the most and what's helping you the most. But you've got this beautiful. You're amazing, and I love you. Goodbye now.